The Laura Ingraham Show.
So all you need to do is connect the dots. Basically, Russia selected Rex Tillerson to be Secretary of State. Russia is responsible for this pick. Russia is responsible for killing off Mitt Romney. I'm watching Chuck Todd. He also had Priebus on. And let's play one of those Chuck Todds because it's just hilarious. So Chuck Todd has Priebus on about the same deal with the Russian hacking. And I'm thinking if I'm Reince Priebus, do I in any way get defensive about this, or do I start going on the offense against bias in the media? And if this idea that countries, including the U.S., by the way, don't try to influence election outcomes when they would benefit their national interest. I know we've had a lot of involvement and concern about elections in Eastern Europe, and I imagine Obama or Trump will hope that one side or another wins in a particular country. Doesn't mean that they get involved in hacking, but the idea that countries don't cheer for certain candidates, that's kind of ridiculous.
Does Donald Trump have confidence in America's intelligence?
Of course he has confidence in America's intelligence, but we don't have confidence in the New York Times releasing a report of unnamed sources of some kind of study that itself, in the Washington Post, said was inconclusive, to claim that because the CIA had hacked emails of the DNC and the Iron State only...
We've already heard this. It's repetitive. At the end of this interview, it was like, this was like Chuck Todd was the candidate running against Donald Trump. It was Chuck Todd channeling Hillary Clinton.
So what I'm trying to tell you is the RNC was not hacked, number one. And by the way, that was the specific allegation that was made in the actual New York Times article.
Right.
The article didn't say affiliates of the RNC. Okay. The article didn't say employee. No, wait a second, Chuck. The article said the RNC was hacked. So don't be defensive with me that I'm refuting the specific fact. Well, I'm refuting the specific fact that was made in the article to create this entire firestorm. And the specific fact, as we've been told by the FBI repeatedly, including 2 days ago when we checked back with them about this issue, repeated the fact that the RNC was not hacked. So do you tell me where this story is at? Why would the press run with something that wasn't true?
Do you believe that this is just one more attempt to try to delegitimize the Trump victory, or is this a legitimate concern? Former CIA acting director Mike Morrell called the intelligence agency's conclusion that Russia meddled in the U.S. presidential election, quote, the political equivalent of 9/11. A foreign government messing around in our elections is, I think, an existential threat to our way of life. To me, and this to me is not an overstatement, this is a political equivalent of 9/11, he said in an interview posted on Sunday in something called the Cipher Brief. It is huge, and the fact that it hasn't gotten more attention from the Obama administration, from Congress, and the mainstream media is just shocking to me. Fake news, Fox News, talk radio, and now Russia. The implicit message here is that Donald Trump didn't win fair and square. No matter what they're saying, and they say, well, we just have to find out if there's anything going on here. We've just got to figure this out. Well, I'm not sure that's really what their goal is. I think before January 20th, they want to do everything in their power, to try to remove the inevitability of the Trump agenda or mandate. They want to try to, I think, tamp it down. The idea that he has a mandate, Russia meddled in this election. How can he have a mandate to do border enforcement? How can he have a mandate to repeal and replace Obamacare? How can he have a mandate to do real tax reform? That's like Russia having a mandate to do real tax reform. That's what's going on here. That's what this is all about. So when you see Trump being badgered, when you see Priebus being badgered on these shows, that's what this is all about. This is what the message is. So this is what they're doing. And as long as you see it that way, then you understand what's really happening.
It's clear the Russians interfered. Now, whether they intended to interfere to the degree that they were trying to elect a certain candidate, I think that's a subject of investigation.
John McCain is entering the Army-Navy game, and of course he's worried about Rex Tillerson as the State Department pick because Rex Tillerson has done business in Russia. Would you rather have someone that's actually done business around the world and doesn't need this job, or someone who desperately needs this job as Secretary of State and doesn't really know any of the players around the world? I think it's kind of an ingenious pick. The more I thought about Tillerson, at first I was like, well, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Now, if I were Trump, I probably wouldn't be tweeting about the CIA at all. You know what I would just say? I'd say, look, I look forward to the results of an objective investigation. But we're moving forward with our agenda, and we're going to keep our adversaries on their toes. We're going to keep our allies believing that we're going to live up to our obligations and our agreements with them, and we're going to move forward for the American people. But yeah, sure, we don't want anyone meddling in these elections. Reince Priebus essentially said that. But the idea that we have this one report out on Friday and everyone's supposed to just, melt into this puddle of goo over it, it's just, again, the media will do anything to discount what happened on November 8th. Anything and everything, including this. But if Hillary Clinton had won, if she had been able to pull out her victory that everybody expected, that would not be a focus right now. They wouldn't be talking about Russia. The only reason they're talking about Russia is because Trump won.
I am going to lead the charge to investigate Russia's role not only in the elections but throughout the world. So I'm going after Russia in every way you can go after Russia. I think they're one of the most destabilizing influences on the world stage. I think they did interfere with our elections, and I want Putin personally to pay a price.
That's just laughable. Lindsey Graham, who has pretty much been wrong about every major foreign policy decision over the last how many years? Lindsey Graham has zero credibility on what's happened with foreign affairs. And you get the sense that none of these people are happy unless we're deploying tens of thousands of U.S. troops in the Middle East. They're never going to be happy unless we're at war footing times 5 in the Middle East. Or apparently against Russia in former Eastern Bloc. But no one's saying Putin is any walk in the park. We all know that. We have our eyes wide open about Putin. But the idea that we're going to leave China to do whatever China wants to do and Russia's the new enemy, what we've ended up doing is we've ended up driving Russia and China together in an alliance because of our policies of the last 8 years. Oh, and need I mention the failed Russian reset of Barack Obama? They've done more to empower Vladimir Putin than any politician in recent memory. By failing with that reset, and they just sat on their hands as Putin decided to move into Ukraine and Crimea, and that's fine. That was their decision. But don't you think Vladimir Putin was more than happy to have Barack Obama in power over the last 2 terms? It's been great for Putin. He's risen on the world stage. His people at home are more pumped about him. And, 6 or 7 years ago, when really smart people, supposedly smart people in foreign policy, were describing Russia as a regional power, he was plotting out his comeback. And his comeback was in large part made possible by the activities of this administration over the last 8 years. So nice trying to blame this on Donald Trump. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Your reaction to this. We're going to have Byron York. He's going to stop by, of course, from the Washington Examiner. And we have some funny commentary about Christmas cards, specifically the point of Christmas cards. I received one in particular from an old friend who I adore. But since when did Christmas go from being about the birth of the baby Jesus to being about where you traveled on a luxury vacation with your children? Don't go away. Well, look at what Jill Stein did with this recount nonsense. See how much money she raised? They need to feed the progressives something. They have to feed them some type of drama. And these groups have to give them a sense that they're still relevant. All these activist groups. These people never cared about Russia when it was the Soviet Union. When the rest of us were saying back in the 80s, you know, we've got to focus. It's got to be peace through strength. We've got to build up our military arsenal. They were calling him Ronnie Reagan back then. They didn't care about Soviet Union. Now suddenly they're all worried about Russia. Don't you love that? They're freaking out about Russia. When Russia was our sworn enemy, they thought that we should just back off. Now that Russia is this different type of player on the world stage, they're the ones who claim to have any credibility on shining the light on Russia. I just don't see that. Let's go to Albert in California. Line 1. Albert.
Hey, Laura. I had a question, or maybe a comment. So where was Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, John McCain a couple years ago when clearly Obama interfered in the Israeli elections? And what was the media then?
Yeah, back in the Jerusalem Post piece on that, I think that's what you're getting at. The idea that Barack Obama had a, clear involvement of some type in the Israeli election. There's a piece, Obama's shocking interference into Israel's election back in, February of 2015. Yeah, but this is Trump, so all the rules are out the window. It's okay to interfere in that election, but it's not okay for Russia to do it to us. Well, I don't want Russia involved in our elections, and I think the campaign should just say we're absolutely looking forward to the results of a full investigation, and this should never happen, and there should be consequences for Russia if it did happen. I think that's the way to handle this. I don't think you have to spend a lot of time on it. Let's go to Andy in Arizona on line 3. Andy, welcome.
Hi, Laura. To me, this seems a lot like blaming Deep Throat for Watergate, that the Russians or whoever hacked didn't actually write those emails. They were written by Hillary, by Jen Palmieri, by John Podesta, and I think we're forgetting what we actually read.
Interesting point. Well, Reince Priebus is adamant that they didn't hack the RNC. He's just adamant that they didn't hack any of the Gmail accounts of any of the employees, or I don't know how you know that, but he said they didn't. We're going to talk to Byron York about this and a lot more. We'll get your calls. What is the most annoying Christmas card that you've received this year so far? The most annoying. Okay? I'm going to tell you why I'm saying this when we come back. Don't go away. Carlson just destroyed that Christopher Suprin, who's an elector who's going to vote a week from today, and who apparently is not going to support Trump, even though, of course, Texas went for Trump, but he's not going to support Trump. You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction, the Laura Ingraham Show. Well, the Electoral College is their last chance, really, to stop it. What is Evan McMuffin saying? Is he trying to make some last-minute pitch for a contested convention? I went back and I looked at some of those old comments. Oh, my gosh. I was screaming this weekend laughing. The McMuffin, the contested convention. We were going to replace Trump with Pence after the Billy Bush tape. Ted Cruz's deal with John Kasich in Indiana. Do you remember all these things? I suggested that Hillary pick Jeb Bush for her vice presidential running mate, and I don't know why she didn't. That would have been a much smarter move than that goofball Kane. Joining us now, one of our old friends, Byron York, who also he's on this Electoral College intrigue, because if Bill Kristol has one avenue to change the election result, he's putting all of his money on this Electoral College. Byron, how are you? Good to talk to you.
I am great. Well, it is a week from today, and it is the absolute last chance for never-Trumpers, or the Trump resistance, they like to call themselves, to stop Trump. Because if he gets 270 or more electoral votes next Monday, all he has to do is take the oath of office, and he is president.
No, I can see Bill Kristol throwing himself in front of the Chief Justice, saying "No" before the.
So, I mean, you're right. I mean, at every step of the way, there's just been kind of a magical thinking among the Trump.
The unicorn.
that they would have a delegate revolt at the Republican convention, and that would stop him. Or that they would replace him on the ticket, as you said, with Pence or somebody else. Or that maybe, this is the best one, that just all year, maybe he would just drop out magically on his own. He would just decide, I just don't need this, and drop out. So none of that's happened, and here we come to the Electoral College. The problem is, you were playing Tucker's interview with Chris Suprin, who is a Texas Republican elector, and all the electoral votes for Texas go to Trump. And he says he's not going to vote for Trump. He won't say who he's going to vote for, but he won't vote for Clinton. He says he's going to vote for some Republican, and people have talked about maybe John Kasich. The problem is, they want to find, this group called Hamilton Electors wants to get 37 Trump electors to defect and vote for somebody else. So remember, Trump has 306. If 37 went away, he would have 269, so he couldn't be the president. And there's two problems. One, they've only got one so far. You just played the guy, and that's it. They only have one. And then the real magical thinking in this is if somehow this magically happened and the election went to the House of Representatives, somehow they believe that Republican-controlled House, Republicans who were in mostly from states that Trump won, would somehow abandon the guy who won 306 electoral votes in favor of somebody like John Kasich, who won 0. I mean, this is magical thinking on steroids.
But I also am getting emails, and people are all upset on Twitter. There are a lot of people who actually believe that they could do something, that there's some way that they can deny Donald Trump the oath of office and the presidency still. People are they're cynical about this, and conspiratorial. I think there's conspiracy-minded people who think that the Jill Stein thing, perhaps with Soros and Hillary, and that Hillary's comments about fake news last week, that there's something else going on here. And I keep telling people I think it's going to be okay, but there are a lot of folks who are worried.
Well, I think the more forward-minded of the Trump resistors have moved on to impeachment over the emoluments clause.
Oh, they're going to that.
They're going to that right now. But there are some sort of dead-enders who hope to stop him. To be serious, the most electors who ever defected from a presidential candidate was in 1808, and 6 of them defected from James Madison. After that, it's only been just one here and one there. In 2004, there was a Democratic elector who voted for John Edwards instead of John Kerry, which is such a great thing to do. In 2000, which was as controversial as you could get for a presidential election, there was just one. There was a Democrat who abstained. And then you had one back in 76 who didn't vote for Gerald Ford, voted for Ronald Reagan instead. So it tends to be this lone wolf protest thing where the occasional faithless elector.
But can't they be fired? Can't these electors be fired? How does this guy get away with this? Christopher Suprin.
It's interesting. I mean, they're usually picked by party conventions in their state, and in 29 states there are laws that require an elector to vote for the popular vote winner in the state. Texas does not have such a law, so Suprin can actually do what he wants to. There's a lawsuit in 2 of the states that do have laws that happen to be really blue states, California and Colorado. There are 2 lawsuits in federal court which are trying to knock out all of the laws in the 29 states that bind the electors to the state popular vote winner. This is kind of odd because a lot of these Democrats want to bind all electors to the national popular vote winner, but that's a different story. So they're trying to get rid of this law, and there's actually court sessions today scheduled on this, but it's not going to happen. And Donald Trump is going to be elected in the Electoral College on December 19th.
We're talking to Byron York here on the Laura Ingraham Show. The fever pitch focus over the weekend was Russia's alleged involvement in the U.S. electoral process, and it is quite something to see Democrats, mostly Democrats, who, when we were facing the nuclear threat from the old Soviet Union, were mocking and ridiculing Reagan, calling him Ronnie Reagan and no nukes and all the stuff they were doing. Now Russia is the great threat to civilization, when we really had the Russian threat aimed at us. They didn't really care much about Russia. It was, we should just all get along, and now it's Russia, Russia, Russia. What's really going on there?
Well, this is so opportunistic. I mean, look, Russia is not our friend. Russia is not our buddy. It is one of many geopolitical challenges that we have at the time. Although, if you remember, you don't have to go back to Reagan. In 2012, Mitt Romney called Russia our greatest geopolitical foe, and the Democrats just mocked him for that. Oh, come on, he really believes that?
Yeah, including Obama.
Yeah. So, but now Russia is the thing, and what we're seeing is this whole Russia hack the election idea kind of overtaking the entire political debate in Washington. The Rex Tillerson nomination, if he is nominated for Secretary of State, is going to get completely caught up in that because Democrats plus John McCain plus Lindsey Graham are going to talk about how he is allegedly too close to Vladimir Putin to represent the United States as Secretary
The Never
of State.
Trumpers. Right. So really, I mean, McCain wasn't a Never Trumper technically, but he hates Trump. I'm sorry, he doesn't like Trump, and he didn't want Trump to be president. So you got McCain, you got Graham, you got Rubio. None of them
the
were...
gang is back together again.
The gang, they're back together again. The immigration amnesty folks are back together again. So they're the ones who are raising concerns. Now, that having been said, I do think it's probably not wise for folks to maybe talk too much negatively about the CIA because you need the CIA believing in this administration, and the administration is going to they're going to need each other. So I think Trump tweeted out something maybe a little too overzealous on Friday or Saturday, and that's like this. David Ignatius actually talked about this today on Morning Joe. Let's listen.
The CIA has said that Russia was running a covert action to destabilize our political system and, in this latest set of reports, to elect Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is saying, what does the CIA know? These are the guys who gave you WMD. It's a sort of a sneer towards the CIA and its analysts. That's a problem. That's something the president really needs to think carefully about.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there does appear to be some disagreement inside the intelligence community, specifically CIA versus FBI, over what Russia's motive was in all of this. There seems to be an agreement that Russia tried to influence the election. And we had the DNC hack, and then we had the Podesta emails. And by the way, the WikiLeaks publication of the Podesta emails, which I kind of used to look forward to every day, stopped right on November 8th. We haven't seen any more after that. I think it appears that our intelligence officials believe that Russia tried to influence the election in this sort of propaganda way, not in actually hacking election or voter machines, which we've apparently found absolutely zero evidence of, and we know the recount efforts have just completely fizzled. So we do have the situation where it appears that Russia was involved in this. Now, on the other hand, attempting to influence the election doesn't mean influencing the election. And we've seen a lot of skeptics say, wow, Russia is so good that they got Hillary Clinton to ignore Wisconsin and Michigan until it was too late. They got her to get involved in this giant email scandal. Russia is so good that they got Obamacare premiums and deductibles to skyrocket just before the election. Obviously, there are a whole number of factors that really did decide the election, and they weren't Russian influence.
Yeah, I mean, I get the sense that a lot of this is being driven also by groups that are desperate to prove their relevance after Trump won. Obviously, the CIA has the CIA's, they have their own sources and conclusions that they're going to draw, and that's fine. But I'm talking about, this is the endless loop on media all weekend long, and they tie it into Tillerson. But you get the sense that a lot of these outside groups are just trying to figure out, how are we going to still raise money? The left-wing groups, how are we going to do this? We have to do global warming, got to trash Jeff Sessions, and everybody has to, they have to whip the public into this hysteria before Trump's even done anything.
And also senators. I mean, we were talking about McCain and Graham and Rubio. We're seeing Democrats. I mean, the reason we saw this stuff in the newspaper was that the CIA decided to, it's not like the CIA called up the Washington Post and said, hey, this is what we think. They told it to senators who told the Washington Post this is what we think. I mean, that's the way this works. And now there are calls for the Senate investigation. Barack Obama, who is really kind of an afterthought right now, says he's going to have an investigation, and he's going to demand that the results be given to him before he leaves office on January 20. So a lot of people who are not playing very big roles right now, like Democratic lawmakers and even the outgoing President of the United States, this has given them new power.
I think I always look for motive, and the motive here is it has to be tied to raising money and getting leverage against the new incoming president.
Leverage. You're so right.
Exactly. Byron, thanks so much for your perspective on this. We really appreciate it. We've linked Byron's piece in the Washington Examiner. Make sure it's both on Facebook, Drew, and on LauraIngraham.com. It's terrific. One final gasp for the Never Trump movement. Don't go away. Yeah, so displayed in Sanborn Square in Boca, the pentagram was placed next to a nativity scene sometime Tuesday by a local man named Preston Smith, a member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. The city gave Smith a permit for the layout, and the foundation provided a sign to be displayed alongside the pentagram. Love trumps hate, this man said in a statement. The First Amendment must be protected, including the freedom to offend. Well, I don't think you have to worry about the freedom to offend being protected. I think society has that covered pretty well. He told Miami's local WSVN that he's not a Satanist, but displayed the pentagram as an argument to end religious displays. Members of the clergy, however, found it an offensive way to promote First Amendment rights. Even the interfaith liberal community is against this. These people are shameless, but what do you expect? It's that time of year. Now I know why they call it a baker's cyst, because you're standing on your feet, and even wood floors. First of all, never have a tile floor in your kitchen. Tile floors are the worst. They kill your legs. So I do have a wood floor, but I only have one of those gel mats. The gel mats really help your legs. But you just don't appreciate what your mother does growing up until you try to do it for 2 days. And my mother would bake. I think she must have baked 10 different types of cookies. She'd do the sugar cookies. She'd decorate them. She'd do the gingerbread men. She'd do the molasses cookies. She'd do the chocolate with a chocolate frosting cookie. She'd do the filled cookie. She'd do the Russian tea cakes. She did all sorts of different cookies, and now I see why it took her weeks to make them. And she was a waitress during the day, so she would do a lot of the stuff at night. I was exhausted. I was like, I got to take a nap. It was very tiring. But I love seeing Trump at the Army-Navy game. How many of you were upset that the Cowboys' streak was ended? Didn't the Giants beat them the first time?
Yep,
too?
They're the only team that's beaten the Cowboys all year. They beat them twice.
Does Jay have any reason why the Cowboys couldn't pull out a victory here? What was the reason? Why couldn't the Cowboys win yesterday? They had their mojo going. Why couldn't the Cowboys pull out the victory?
He's saying it's a combination of Dallas's offense just not being able to get it done against a great Giants defense.
Oh, okay. Well, what happened to Tony Romo? Is he hurt again?
No, actually, he has officially taken a back seat now that this rookie quarterback, Dak Prescott, has led them to such a great record. So Tony's just backing up. He's healthy.
Well, he's always hurt, too. I mean,
although, wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden everybody wants Tony coming back in now that they lost to the Giants again for the second time.
Yeah, good point. How about old RG3? Isn't he playing for the Browns? Did he start yesterday?
Yes.
RG3, what happened? They have the worst record in football, don't they?
Yep, still don't have a win.
But poor old RG3. But I was watching him doing he was doing the drills before the game. He was running the 50. He was fast. I mean, that leg has been destroyed more times. That whole right knee has to be just fake on his part, because hasn't he destroyed his ACL twice?
Yeah, he's torn that thing up in college, in Washington. It's been pretty bad.
So he's now with the Browns. Well, the old Redskins pulled out a victory too. I was happy about that. That was such a good game, and it was kind of sloppy, but it was 22-21. And then again, I got caught up in the baking, and then by the time I turned it back on, it was 27-25 or 27-22,
27-22.
Yeah, that was they're in the hunt for the wild card, right? The Redskins.
Yeah, it's tough because you got the Giants and the Cowboys that are right over there as well, but they still have a shot. They're playing good football. They could have 10 wins and still not make the playoffs.
That's unbelievable. I like Kirk Cousins. I like him. I think he's a good guy. He's been pretty good this year. I mean, all things considered. I mean, so anyway, that's enough for I know you don't listen to me for football, but I am a football fan. I get depressed when football's over too. I know everyone's like, you got to watch basketball. I'm not into basketball. And don't tell me about the Final Four. And I'm not into that. I'm not into the pools, the office pools. I always lose. I'm not into the basketball. I know Jay loves the basketball. I hate the basketball. I don't know why. I'm just not into basketball. I played it in high school too, but I much prefer to watch good baseball in the playoffs and hockey to watch basketball. These guys are so tall they can practically just drop it in the hoop anyway. It's easy for them. They can do the games are like 120 points. This is one guy. When one guy can score 55 points, that's just not a game that I'm interested in. Okay, I need more of a challenge than that. All right, now I've offended all the people who are. Oh, then they had this thing on. See, I was in the kitchen, so I was watching. They had this tournament on where they had the great players and their sons playing with them. You see that golf tournament, Jay? You watch everything. And they had John Daly with his son. His son must be 15 years old. Was I watching a replay? No, I think it was live. His son must be 15 years old, is a carbon copy of John Daly in girth and facial. Look at John Daly's son. Does he not look exactly like him? And he could draw. He hit that ball with a driver, and that kid is an unbelievable golfer. I don't know if he's going to play professionally or what, but I was watching him play. And Maria comes into the room and she says, "That is the most boring thing. I can't believe you're not watching football." I said, "I just got stuck on this for a minute because I was watching the father-son deal." Wasn't it father-son, James?
Yeah, there is a father and son team classic, although I think it might have been recorded. Yeah, because it says here it happens like in July.
Oh, first of all, don't you hate when stuff goes on TV and you think it's live and then you feel like a total stooge afterward? You're like, wow, this is really great. And they're like, well, that happened 6 months ago. Okay, so I was a total stooge.
There's so many sports channels. They got to find something to throw on, so they put on stuff from years ago.
Yeah, you're watching like the 75 Cotton Bowl, and it's like, wow, the quality of the video doesn't seem that sharp in this. Maybe I've got to put it on HD. And you're like, wait, that doesn't change it. Oh, my gosh. All right, we got a lot of news to get to. 855-40-LAURA. Let's go to John in Florida. John has it. Oh, I should have thought of this. This makes me mad. John, go ahead.
Hey, Laura. I flew up to the game from St. Petersburg.
Awesome.
I've gone to most Army Navy games. I'm a grad Army. Go Army.
Good, man.
And it was amazing the reception that Trump got at the game. I mean, I was at the game post 9/11, and it was exactly the same. I mean, and in between all those years, it was like crickets at the game. So that's all I wanted to weigh in on. It was just absolutely amazing. It almost brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah, it was something to watch, and he just loved being there. You could tell he was completely in his element, and I can't wait for the first trip he makes to visit troops deployed overseas. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I still remember on Thanksgiving Day, I believe it was in 2003, I believe, when George Bush made the surprise visit to Iraq and didn't tell anyone, and he dropped into Baghdad and surprised the troops, and he was actually serving them turkey in the line to get the food. I still remember that. That was it 2003? I was in the kitchen. Thank you very much. Making my apple pie. I still remember exactly what I was doing. I was making my apple pie. I was in a different house, but I didn't have kids either. That was, obviously it was a long time ago. So I was making my apple pie, and I had the TV. I'm like, oh my word. He snuck into Iraq, and they only brought one press person, and they managed to get in and get out. And they had landed. He had met with the troops, and he had already taken off before they released the video, because it was extremely dangerous. But he went in there and did that. That's the only other time in recent memory. Of course, Reagan got great responses from the troops as well. But that's pretty good for an incoming president. They did not get the same. Oh yeah, there were crickets when Obama dropped into the Army Navy game. It's like, whew. Like, yeah, yeah. They didn't really. All right, okay. I have to talk about this just briefly. We're going to talk about Tillerson from ExxonMobil. Are you worried that he's going to be named Secretary of State? He has done business all over the world as the CEO of the world's most successful oil company, which is ExxonMobil. He is roundly considered one of the most talented American CEOs in modern history, right up there with I think Wright from GE. So he's obviously extremely talented, extremely smart. But, of course, in television, all you're going to see is him shaking hands with Vladimir Putin with a smile on his face. That's all they're going to show morning, noon, and night. I'm going to go on with Tucker Carlson tonight, by the way, on Fox News, so make sure to tune in. I saw Tucker. I was getting pizza with two of my kids. I had to drop one off at a birthday party on Saturday. And I took Maria and Dimitri. We got a little pizza in the neighborhood. And I sat down, and who's sitting there right next to me but Tucker with his daughter, who's adorable. She's going into, I think she's in high school. But he said, I think I'm seeing you on Monday. I said, really? Where? He's like, on my show. I said, oh, okay. Forgot about that. But he's such a great guy. By the way, his show is doing really well on Fox. He has a great presentation. He's a lovely person. And in the media, sometimes there are not lovely people who aren't all that friendly. And he's just a great guy. So I'm looking forward to doing that show tonight. And also, I need 100 of you this week, 100 of you to step up for my charity of choice this Christmas season, which is Food for the Poor. Okay? So we need 100 of you to step up this week. Show your hearts. A gift of $500 will feed 10 children for a year. Life for a year for 10 kids, and water for the rest of their lives. And 250 will feed 5 children for a year. So I want you to go to lifezet.com now. Click on that banner. You'll see Choose Life on the top. And the lower right-hand side of the website as well, you'll see it. It's lifezet.com. Also, you can go to lauraingraham.com, and you can see the banner there. But I want 100 of you to step up. And also, I have a very special offer. Check this out. Now, I'm asking 3 of you, for Food for the Poor, 3 of you to step up and give $10,000 each to Food for the Poor. And right now, if you do, you get to co-host 1 hour of this show when the new year begins, okay? If you give $10,000 to Food for the Poor, you get to co-host an hour of the show when the new year begins. Isn't that cool? I have another thing that I'm not going to announce yet, but there's another special thing I'm going to give to people. And it's very easy. You just you can call our show line, 855-40-LAURA, 855-40-LAURA. You give us your contact information. We'll get you in touch with the folks at Food for the Poor. And $10,000, you get to host an hour of the show. That's going to be fun.
That's like a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Hello, you get to talk to millions of people. You have to keep it, you have to keep it clean. I mean, it has to be a reasonable presentation, but we do have a delay, a 10-second delay. But no, it's going to be a blast. Some other friends of mine on radio have done this, and it's been so much fun for the listeners and really fun for the participants. So, and also you do something that's just fantastic for people who are most in need. So $10,000 to Food for the Poor. You can call us at 855-40-LAURA, 855-40-LAURA. You get to host an hour of the show. 3 of you, only 3 of you. It's only limited to 3 people. So co-hosting my show, and I'll just sit back and see how you do, and then I'll grade you at the end. 855-40-LAURA. A lot more to get to. Don't go away. Let's go to Jeff in Nevada on line 2. Jeff, go ahead, my friend.
Hi, Laura. I think Rex Tillerson's a genius of a choice, and his business interests can only help our country. Then I listened to John McCain on TV yesterday, saying he's going to question all this. His family controls the alcohol distribution market in his home state.
His wife,
and that's
right?
Okay.
His wife.
His wife, correct.
No.
And then John Kerry's wife, of course, is Heinz family, and they do business all over the world. And that's okay. But we don't hear about that.
No, again, let's just keep this really in perspective. A lot of these people really didn't care anything about what the Clinton Foundation did all over the world when she was Secretary of State, and the money that was going to the foundation to set up interviews with Hillary Clinton and set up meetings with Hillary Clinton. So they just don't have any credibility on this at all, in my view. That's a great point about Kerry's wife's deceased husband, the Heinz, John Heinz, of course. Mike in Arkansas, go ahead.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
Good. Real quick.
Great. Hey, I guess I don't understand why having good relations with other influential countries like Russia is a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. We should be friends with more countries if possible and get stronger at home so we can exercise our influence abroad and take care of our own people. I agree with you. And that is the first major agreement, writes the Wall Street Journal, between a U.S. company and the Islamic Republic. Yeah, this is The political winds are changing. Planned aircraft sales by Boeing and Airbus to Iranian carrier Iran Air are among the most high-profile transactions signed since Iran and the Western powers signed on to that stupid Iran deal. Now Western executives are trying to figure out whether President-elect Donald Trump will step in to slow or stop the tentative approaches that many companies have already made. The Boeing deal was first announced back in June and officially sealed between Boeing and Iran on Sunday. It's valued at $16.6 billion based on the company's list price, which doesn't include other discounts. Airbus has a similar deal. Well, you know, for sure, Americans are employed because of this deal. We have a lot of people working in the aircraft business, and it's one of the solid manufacturing bases left in the United States. And remember, Boeing's doing a deal over there in China, working with China on some airliners. And a lot of folks years ago were concerned about that because how long before China decides we're just going to undercut Boeing? Now that we've learned about how to make these avionics, the sensitive technology that you use in modern day commercial jets, how long before China does what China does, which is undercut, make it more cheaply, and perhaps ultimately steal business from Boeing. A lot of people concerned about that as well. Do you think Trump should slow this deal? Or are they going to get these jets anyway from Airbus, and this gives America a chance to get back to work and keeps Boeing humming, and that's good for the country? Or is there any other concern on this? I could argue this both ways about Iran, but we know the deal was completely pathetic, and there was much more to come. I mean, this is just a high-profile deal. We have other deals as well being pushed because of this Iran agreement between Western powers and the United States. So there are plenty more where that came from. And there's also some. There's food, you know, the fast food companies want to be in there. And oh, yeah, I have another one. This is another weird one. Yeah, so Abercrombie & Kent, this is funny. Abercrombie & Kent, which is this luxury travel agency, they began offering $5,695 guided tours of Iran for Americans. How many of you would spend almost $6,000 for a guided tour of Iran? I can't think of a place I'd less rather want to go. No, thank you. Oh, yeah. What are you doing for spring break? I'm going to Iran. I don't think so. So Abercrombie & Kent is now operating there. Yeah, it will react in response to changes in government policy, but it's not pulling back from its plans. We're hopeful that President-elect Trump's extensive business and hospitality background will make him receptive to the value of the travel industry. The Boeing deal covers 15 of the company's 777s, their long-haul jets, and 15 of the newer 777X wide-body aircraft under development, as well as 50 of the 737 MAX single-aisle jets. Boeing had said it might need to trim production of its existing 777 jet unless it won fresh orders. So this is the deal that Boeing wants to make, saying, "Look, we're just gonna have to stop production if we don't get this Iran business." That's what they were saying. Boeing has more than 5,700 jet orders valued at almost $500 billion, though the company needs to secure more deals for its 777-30ER to avoid production cuts after a recent slowdown in those deals. Iran's transport minister, according to the Wall Street Journal, Abbas Akundi, said the deal was the, quote, first step for the renovation of the country's aviation fleet and would soon be followed by concluding talks with Airbus. For Iran Air, replacing planes is a priority. After years of sanctions, some imposed after the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the carrier operates some of the world's oldest airliners. I can tell you, when I was in the Soviet Union in 1983, we had to fly between Kiev and Yerevan in Armenia. And at that time, no Americans were in Armenia. Armenia was a Soviet republic. And I remember sitting on the tarmac in one of these Soviet jets. They had no air conditioning. We were baking on the tarmac. I don't know if they had I don't know why it was delayed. This was the most disgusting and old plane. We're sitting there. So I was, 19 years old? And yeah, something like that. Yeah, 19 years old. And sitting there, and these stewardesses, and I put that in quotes, they're like battle axes coming down the aisles, and we're dying. We're going, can't breathe. It was like, we thought we were being tortured. It was awful. I still joke about this with my friends from college. So they come down the aisle with these a tray of plastic cups with some type of liquid in them. It's like a limonade, po-ruski, like lemonade, limonade, and it had no ice, of course, because ice was you got a premium for ice back then. No ice, and so I was like, oh, thank God, there's liquid. And she just kind of barks at you. She puts the tray down. I grab my liquid. I look down. There's a Mongo fly in my cup. Well, what did I do? I took the fly out and I drank it. I was thirsty. That's a long-winded way of saying these were old aircrafts. These things were breaking down, and you barely.
That was first class.
Oh no, this was coach. Of course, we were kids, but this was coach, and this was just old aircraft. So I can't imagine what the Iranian aircraft are like. They must be really old. So I don't. Of course, they want to have our high tech aircraft. Of course they do. I'm half surprised Obama, when he signed the Iran deal, I'm surprised he didn't say, yeah, we'll make sure Boeing produces these jets for you, and that will make it easier for you to bring more Islamic folks into the United States. Yeah, we'll just have a nonstop shuttle service from Tehran into the United States. By the way, a horrific story out of Egypt. Another success for the Obama administration in protecting the Christians. After we, of course, got rid of Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, Egypt's Coptic Christians targeted. These are among the oldest Christian communities left in the world. Cathedral blast kills 25 in Cairo. A bombing at a chapel adjacent to Egypt's main Coptic Christian cathedral killed 25 people, wounded another 49 during Sunday Mass, one of the deadliest attacks carried out against the religious minority in recent memory, and a grim reminder of Egypt's struggle to restore security and stability after nearly 6 years of turmoil. The attack came 2 days after a bomb elsewhere in Cairo killed 6 policemen. The Muslim Brotherhood has been linked to this. That group, called Hassam, or Decisiveness, distanced itself from the attack in a statement, saying it does not, in principle, kill women and children, the elderly, or worshippers. The statement, at least in theory, leaves the Islamic State or like-minded independent militants, Islamic militants, as the chief suspects. It's horrible. The Christians in the Middle East have just been, and we're just not letting any of them in. So chalk that up for... Oh, Boeing, Tennessee production. I believe they have it in Tennessee, right, boys? Someone check it. I can't talk and check. I believe Boeing has a plant down there in Tennessee. Mike in Iowa, line 4. Mike.
The main person to blame for Boeing doing business with Iran is Bob Corker and the Corker Amendment. The Corker Amendment was designed to release the money to Iran in return that Iran was going to be able to purchase planes from Boeing. That was reported on back in earlier parts of this year, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, and Bob Corker, of course, was up for Secretary of State. Went in there and met with Trump, but it looks like Tillerson's going to get it. Well, you do have to follow the money. And I have no trouble working for American manufacturing and improving American jobs. I mean, we should be doing that, but we always have to weigh the cost on the other side. There's a reason we didn't do business with the former Soviet Union when I was there. I mean, they had old planes. And finally, we helped break the Soviet Union up. Yeah, because they needed the money. They couldn't keep up with the military arms race and keep up with the way the world was changing, and everyone was getting restless over there. And so, it all came crumbling down. Oh, another success for Obama. ISIS takes back Palmyra in Syria. Ancient ruins stand in Palmyra earlier this year after the city was recovered by ISIS. Remember, that was the big story, that they drove ISIS out of Palmyra. Now they're back. So So much for the idea that ISIS is on the run. Yeah, they're on the run back to the places where they were kicked out of before. Let's go to Mike in South Carolina on line 5. The Iranians know what they're doing here with this Iran deal. This is a joke. Mike.
Yes, I'm just concerned about any deal with Iran because if they're going to use that as leverage when Trump tries to redo the deal with Iran that he wants to get rid of completely, or maybe, I don't know, if he's just going to try to, renegotiate it. They're going to use that as leverage, saying, well,
absolutely.
You guys employed. Or,
oh, yeah. And Democrats will try to turn it around on Trump, say, oh, you're supposed to be the jobs president. Now you want to kill off these jobs in Tennessee and out there in Seattle, too. So you got Tennessee manufacturing, you got Seattle manufacturing for Boeing. I believe it's, or am I thinking of General Dynamics? I think Boeing's out there in Seattle as well. So, I mean, you got a lot on the line. And they're going to use every inch of leverage. I mean, that's just the way the game is played. Let's go to Bernard in Connecticut, line 3. Bernard.
Hi, Laura.
Yes, sir.
Nice speaking to you.
Yes, sir.
Nice speaking to you. I would, first of all, I want to vote you for press secretary for Trump.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then I'm an immigrant from South Africa, been here a few years, got work permit, green card, became legal about 8 years ago, and what a privilege being able to live the dream here in America. And coming from South Africa, I just hope America never goes that way, because the whole of Africa has become third world because they're all flocking down to South Africa now, all the illegals. So I hope America just stays legal and live the dream.
I've been twice to South Africa, and it's both very beautiful and very dangerous, not just because of the wild animals running around. There's a lot of crime in South Africa. I spent a lot of time in Joburg and down in Cape Town and went up to Stellenbosch, and I loved it there. I mean, you know that drive when you go around the coast from Cape Town, Bernard? You must have done that drive.
Bay?
Yeah.
To Hart Bay, to Cork Bay?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
It's nothing like it in the whole world to see it. It's absolutely stunning.
No, I'm actually leaving tonight to go there for a holiday, and I'll be back. But I just go, and when I go, I just keep very low profile and very modest, because the crime is terrific there.
You know what's also interesting is that you have all these signs on the road just beautiful. It's, again, a spectacular coastline, gorgeous, rocky, but you can get off and walk on the beach. You get chased by ostriches on the beach, though. I'm walking on the beach, and I heard something behind me. I turn around, this ostrich is looking at me. It was scary. They chase you on the beach there in South Africa. And then there's signs that say, keep your windows rolled up. And I thought that was because of crime, but it's the baboons that jump in your car. They jump in your car, and they rip your car to shreds. They take everything from inside your car, and then they jump back out. You know the baboons are vicious.
Food. Yeah. That's if you're in the Kruger Park.
No, not just in the Kruger Park. When we were driving on the coast road, and we went off and did a little sightseeing, there are signs that you have to be careful, because the baboons wait at the stoplights, and if there's a window open in your car, they jump in the back of your car, and people have gotten really badly hurt too. Those front teeth on the baboons, you think they're cute until they're 130 pounds of brute strength coming at you, and whatever piece of food you had in your front seat. It's wild. I love it there, though. And you got the accent, which I love too. Is that an Afrikaans accent, or what is that?
That's it. I was a farmer there for many years, so I've got that.
Yes.
That old accent.
Yeah, you got the old accent.
Laura, if ever you come to Connecticut to Bridgeport, I'd love to go out for lunch to Ralph.
Oh yeah, to Connecticut in many years. I'll be there for years. I was just there. Bridgeport still has some great food. We'll take a break. I appreciate that call. 855-40 Laura. We'll take a break. Should we be selling jets to Iran? And what will Trump do? That's an interesting question. If anything, to slow these deals down with the Islamic Republic. What could go wrong? I'll be on with Tucker Carlson tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Fox News Channel, and always check LifeZette throughout the day. Hillary's historic $1 billion failure, one of our top